am so pleased to welcome on stage the real women of vacation rentals, Alex Husner and Annie Holcombe, who are going to be hosting our next panel.
We're having a fireside chat. There's no fire, but we got to have a fireside chat, a true fireside chat in New Hampshire with you about 2 months ago.
Was that that house?
That was that house.
That house. It was
yeah,
beautiful.
and we've had to be super, super secret about this, which has been impossible for me. But it was just an incredible experience, and to get to meet that owner and his perspective and see what went into the process of how you picked the vacation rentals of the year, and he was one of 80 that they chose out of millions of listings, right?
Well over 2 million.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, we were in America by the fire.
Yeah.
But now we got Austin, Texas, Panama City, Myrtle Beach, and we're in the UK at a building called Old Billingsgate. This feels like a place that we should probably have a fire. Doesn't that feel a lot more
Someone
British?
help us with
Yeah.
that, please?
Yeah. Can that be arranged?
Okay, maybe
Okay,
not.
we'll bring the fire here. So to get started, I mean, you get to see the vacation rental industry from a very global scale. You're in 8 different countries, and you get to see managers of all sizes. What is one thing that you feel has been the biggest shift in short-term rentals this year?
I mean, I think not even just this year. I would say in my 10 years in this category, there was a time when we called this alternative accommodations, and it felt like it was something that was over here. And now I think that travelers are considering it much more part of their everyday consideration set. And as such, what that means is they expect hotel-type consistency and hotel-type quality, while at the same time getting all the great things that exist with our category, like the very great and unique home. So I think that's the big shift. It's not alternative, and the thing that's not alternative anymore is about the consistent quality.
Yeah, so on the consistency and like standardization, we had the conversation in New Hampshire about the selection process that these homes go through for you to give them this award, give them this designation. So why don't you share a little bit about that process and what that looks like?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it starts with it's a data process first, because one of the benefits of being an OTA is based upon looking at acceptance rate and cancellation rate and reviews and the amount of contacts and service contacts that partners ultimately end up driving. We can tell via data what's at least meeting the bar of like pretty good. And these are the houses that are typically going to be loved by guests. They're typically going to be run by premier partners. But then what's cool is we take that population, and this is where I get to leverage my team of 300 global account managers that really understand. They understand Devon, they understand Cornwall, they understand Myrtle Beach, they understand Panama City, and can say, oh, I talked to this host or this partner recently, and let me tell you about the small little touches that they do. And I think that's like one of the reasons we found David. Like that's a house that obviously it's clean every time, and that guy never cancels. But you know what also? Like, remember when we were at that house, you'd walk downstairs and he has all of the snowshoes, and he has all this equipment that is like really like the touches to make sure somebody's gonna have an amazing stay. And by doing some of this crowdsourcing with the team, we get to understand what are the stories of people that are going above and beyond.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at if over your beverage of choice tonight, if you look at the vacation homes of the year, you'll be scrolling, and every one of them has a little bit of a different flavor and a little bit of different hospitality. And I was looking at it last night, and I was just so excited and thinking, I want to stay at all these.
All of them, yeah. And we got to be there, so that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of us got to stay there.
We did
though.
not.
No.
How did that happen?
I know.
I think we have to go back.
The PR team got to stay there. How convenient.
Yeah, right? Next year it's Bali, right?
Yeah, exactly. So looking at the UK market in particular, this is a market where it's been around here forever. It's a lot of family-run businesses, kind of mom and pop, a little bit more of a feel, versus in the US, there's such a push to the professionalization. And in that, there's pros and cons, and you said that that's what travelers are looking for. But do you feel like too much professionalization is taking away from the uniqueness of what vacation rentals are, and is there a sweet spot?
You know, it's a good question. I mean, I think there's a few different vectors we would look at. So first of all, we don't care whether you're a professional property manager or if you're an individual host, as long as you deliver the goods, as long as the quality and consistency is there every time. Then, if you take a lens of that as to what do we specifically see in Europe, I mean, one of the amazing things about Europe is how different regions and different countries feel so different versus America is kind of America, for better or worse, right?
Right.
But I think about how UK hospitality feels quite different than Greek hospitality. I don't know if Jason Anastasis is here. I was in Greece with him in February, and the nature of the way vacation rentals feel in Greece is very different than it feels in the UK. And that's super cool as a traveler, especially as an American that gets to come over here and experience vacation rentals in different markets. That uniqueness is really special. And I think that's part of the reason that some of the larger pan-European property managers have actually been quite successful because they've been strong at maintaining that local flair. We all know the story of Vacasa in America, right? Where it's all about we're a technology company, we're going to strip out local teams. But if you look at the big sort of roll-ups that have happened here, Interhome, Aways, some of the big ones in Germany, they've typically kept a lot of local team on the ground so that you can maintain how the UK feels different than Greece.
Yeah. So I want to kind of pivot over to the technology piece of it. And I thought what's interesting, going back to this house in New Hampshire, is the owner is an MIT guy.
Bright dude, right?
Super bright, works on technology all the time, and he purposely didn't put a lot of technology into his house because he wanted it to be an experience. So I think people are in a space right now with AI and the amount of technology that's out there is finding that balance in what technology looks like. So where do you see technology playing a role and maybe where it should be and shouldn't be within vacation rentals?
I think AI generally is an efficiency play. I think that it's an amazing opportunity for us to hopefully provide better customer service. We certainly are investing heavily in AI throughout the whole search journey to make that more efficient for travelers, by summarizing hundreds of reviews into the information that people need to know. And then for property managers, in your consulting businesses, you probably see tons of ways that people are leveraging AI. But an example I think about with the property managers is AI can tell you what the Wi-Fi password is. But if you have a more complex issue, doesn't it feel better to have a human take care of it?
Yeah.
And AI also, you know what it can't do? It can't put out the perfect welcome gift. And you know what it also can't do? I was just in this chat with Simon Lehman, and what he was saying is we keep talking about ourselves like we're technology companies when you know what we do more than anything? We're cleaning companies. AI can't clean the house perfect every time.
But if they can, I'm hiring them.
Yeah, that sounds good. Maybe a
a toilet to clean. I'm all on board.
We're thinking big up here.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And when you look at the US versus the UK, generally we've kind of seen that UK is a little bit less ambitious to try out automations and to jump into AI because of the reasoning of wanting to continue to stay more personalized. And I think somewhere in the middle ground is the right place to be. But how do you look at it from a guest communication standpoint?
I think it just needs to be, it's something supplemental, right? And probably our industry's still figuring that out. I'd be kind of keen to hear what you guys have done with property managers about where have you implemented it well, and where perhaps have you implemented it and it hasn't gone exceptionally well. AI can do all sorts of things incorrectly. We have this story of we were trying to choose hero images. Which picture appears for every property on the site? And we said, AI, figure this out for us. And I guess our AI thought that bodies of water were the best picture. And then we had a search page where every picture was of pool or the ocean without the house in it. That's an example of AI not working properly. So I'd be keen to hear from your perspective, working with property managers in the consulting space, what's worked, and then maybe do you have an example of what hasn't?
Yeah, sure. Well, and I think to your one point about there's some things that you want to handle, you want a human to handle, right? And I think when AI is working the best, that's exactly the premise, that take the things that are the remedial tasks and back and forth messages, but then leave the human to deal with escalations or providing a better owner experience or guest experience. So it's like that's that blend. The things that work really well, I mean, answering the basic questions, review responses is huge, and being able to surface not just what the guest said, but if there's particular things about a property that keep coming up, and maybe you see a certain cleaner that now you've been able to spot a trend, that's huge as far as efficiencies.
Yeah. That's just content, right?
Yeah.
That's just
yeah,
content.
yeah,
That's
crazy
pretty. That's
content.
pretty easy for AI to connect the dots there.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking of AI, I think we're seeing people use it to optimize some of their operations. And thinking in terms of operations and operational excellence, and that's part of the equation for choosing the vacation rental of the year. And you look at how people are able to give these personalized services. And so a host with one property can really, really dig in and provide, like this gentleman did, incredible service. But what are you seeing with larger property groups that have figured out how to provide that customized service? Like what sets them apart? What have they done differently? Is it technology? Is it teams? Like what are you seeing that they're able to really provide that level of service?
I think so the individual owner, like they have the benefit of, it's one house, they probably don't need a lot of tech, they don't need scale. It's literally them that's coming in and writing the welcome letter, like it's them. I mean, I think that there's probably two things that I would look at with respect to the professionals. So first of all, the professionals clearly are smarter about leveraging technology. Sometimes they're, and I think also the best professionals, they realize that they don't need every single piece of technology. Sure. As much as we love the vendor hall out there, probably some of those are more important than others.
Absolutely.
If I were to think about leveraging technology to deliver consistency, so who's a provider that you should probably use? Like Breezeway's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Like that's some basic technology. But then additionally, I think one thing that property manager can also do is they're very good at leveraging the network of people that exist in that local community. So, they know the right restaurant recommendations. They know that so-and-so has the best fishing company. They know that so-and-so is the most efficient about getting your beach chairs out there. So I think that there's still some element of art and science where you're trying to leverage technology, but also build relationships. And that's a way that a professional property manager can demonstrate their value at scale, because it isn't physically you guys that are in there writing the welcome note.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
As far as how you're looking at AI too, and you mentioned on your search results, but I'm curious, how does Vrbo stay relevant, or any OTA or any Google search engine, with what's going on with the LLMs? Like, where do you see the future of where you're going to be able to leverage those to continue to stay relevant?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are actively working to make sure that our properties show up in those new ways that people are searching for properties. And we are being super aggressive to make sure that they have all of our best content. In some ways, some places, that's also very unique content that we have. That's one of the reasons that we actually now have, travelers have the abilities to leave pictures in their reviews. Those are pictures that are only available on Vrbo. And then additionally, if you just look at the macro landscape, that is a search process. And I think that generally people at first think, well, that's what an OTA does. It's distribution. Well, we actually do a lot more. We service bookings. We handle fraud. There's an entire backbone of what we do to deliver so much for the industry that's well beyond just the very most linear process of traveler goes to LLM, finds property on Vrbo, books property on Vrbo, and leaves. Now, I'd love it to work that way every time. But there's so much more that goes into running our business
Oh, for sure.
beyond strictly that linear path. I mean, if you really think about that linear path, just based on the nature of our category, like, very often it does not happen. Very often you need to give somebody a holler
Yeah.
to try to figure out, like, something about the property. There's a lot there, but, like, clearly, like, we're skating to where the puck is. There's a new world that, in the way that people are trying to find properties, and we're going to be super present there.
Yeah, great.
So, I have so many questions about AI, and I'm both excited and freaked out by it.
It's a little weird, right?
It's incredibly weird. So I could ask a million questions about it, but I kind of want to like go to the OTA question. And so I think what's interesting, and I've learned in my years in the industry, is that the European market is more heavily OTA driven than the American market. And I don't know if it's like they seem to adopt more channels easier than the U.S. market. I think the average operator in the U.S. has maybe 3-4 channels, but over here having 10 or 12 is not unheard of. What do you think, from your perspective, is the difference between the two areas, U.S. versus Europe, in why people either adopt? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, so first of all, like the U.S., like you almost have to think about it different in terms of different regions. Like in the Carolinas, there are many property managers that have the luxury of being 80% direct.
Yeah.
And if you're 80% direct, well, if you're 80% direct, all you need is Verbo, right?
Right.
There's some people that choose to do that.
Yep. It's a good marketing channel.
But there's a distinct possibility that you probably need fewer channels.
Sure.
And then also I would say about Europe, like, you know, not only are there the big three people that were just up here, but there's actually much more small OTAs that might be specialized in certain types of travelers or specific countries and regions that can be supplementary to them.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, makes sense. As far as smaller hosts versus larger hosts, where do you see the ability to still have that human connection? That, you know, it's obviously at scale becomes harder to bring the baskets to the homes and everything else. But like, what's one way that you can kind of meet in the middle there of that humanization?
I think for the PMs, it's about brand building, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody here, as much as I'd love you to only have an OTA business, you're also trying to build a direct business. And if you're thinking about building a direct business, you need to figure out what is that business stands for. So that's welcome gifts. That's what's the iconography that exists throughout the home that makes people know who we are and what we stand for. You know, and you guys have seen it in your consulting business. There's different ones that lean further into like human service. There's other ones that lean more into efficiency and technology. There's other ones that might lean more into like concierge type whole trip. Like I think that because you're not the one that's physically in there writing the welcome note, I think it's about brand building and figuring out what works for you. And this is your wheelhouse, right? Think about what you did different at Casago versus what you've been doing as you've been going into different companies, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's finding your unique flavor and being able to express that, whether it's how you're talking to the guests, the things that you're doing in the stay. It has to be unique. I mean, otherwise, why even do it?
Yeah.
I'd be keen to hear from you.
Yeah.
See what I'm doing here?
Yeah, I do.
You're
doing the interview.
Like off script.
What are some elements of brand building or sort of archetypes of vacation rental brands that you've seen be really successful? Are there different pockets that you've said like, oh, this is one way you can do it, or this is another way you can do it?
I think the one thing that I've seen consistently in the brands that are they're the leaders in their market. They've been around for a long time, and they're very well known. They are consistent in everything that they do. So the look and feel, the language, whether it's on the website, to the confirmation email, to pre-arrival, to the post-stay process, to how they answer the phone. It's like it's doing the same things with consistency and having a really professional look behind it. That's like kind of the main thing that I look for.
So it's not, in your mind, it's not just standardized operational procedures, but it's almost something about like tone of voice.
It's right. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's about creating an experience before the people actually get there. Like when they look at a picture, it evokes an emotion. They look at the content, and it evokes a feeling. And if they're looking for a certain type of, vacation, then that property needs to fit what that emotion is that you're trying to derive.
Yeah, which is harder to do if you're a smaller host with 1 or 2 or 3 properties and you aren't focused on building a brand. And not everybody has that intention. Some people might just want to put their properties on Vrbo.
Well, this host was the perfect one.
Right.
One property, and that's what he wants. So, and does a stellar job with it.
Yeah.
So I think I just came up with a new future podcast episode.
Oh, okay.
Brand building.
How to
brand building.
Yeah.
We never talk about brand.
We talk about it quite a bit. Every
We
once
talk about
in
it
a while.
a lot.
Yeah.
So when you think about branding on VRBO,
Vrbo. Come on.
Vrbo, sorry. I'm Vrbo.
You're stuck in the past, Andy.
I am, I'm sorry.
Vacation rental by owner, Vrbo.
It's so funny, though, in conversations, in the same sentence, we'll say Vrbo
both.
and VRBO.
Yeah.
We'll interchangeably switch. It's bizarre.
I don't know. Now I lost the train of thought.
I think we all do.
Okay, that's not just us.
What is it that property managers can do with, I guess, their account manager to make sure that their tone of voice and their branding is present? Because I know that you obviously don't want their website and their phone numbers and their logos and those type of things. But what is it that they can do to make sure that their tone of voice is on their listing?
I mean, we do allow content that speaks to who this property manager is and what they stand for, and that's content.
Yeah.
Not allowed to put your direct site there.
Yeah.
But we do enable people to do that. And then also, I mean, I think there's a lot of it that comes through, hopefully, in some of the more quantitative metrics. I mean, it's not necessarily a brand thing, but if your business has 99% 5-star reviews, that's a pretty striking data point about your brand.
Right.
If you never cancel, if you always have fast response time, that's also something about your brand. So I think it's a data and a content play that, again, is kind of math and science. It's the quant of what we see on the platform, and then it's the qualitative where you get an opportunity to talk about who you are.
Yeah, so I think that's good. I think people have a misconception about OTAs stripping your brand out. Yes, I mean, there's going to be things that you can't do, and it makes sense. You're branding VRBO, Vrbo. You don't want to have theirs front and center, but you want them to be allowed to talk in their voice.
Yeah, we recognize, I mean, that there's value in some of the brand stuff that you were talking about, and we think it's a conversion driver.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, we don't want leakage off the site because this is how we make money.
Right.
And, I always like to think, at least, that, despite the fact that we do charge commissions, with those commissions, you are paying for a booking, but you are also paying for the opportunity to add a traveler to your CRM.
Exactly.
And in the future, I'm going to try like hell to get that repeat booking, but you can too if you get the contact information, and you have ways of doing that.
Yeah. And again, I always tell people, don't look at it as you're paying a commission. It's a marketing. It's a marketing channel. It's a marketing play. It should be part of your line item in your marketing budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these Carolina property managers that have the luxury of being 80% direct, a lot of those properties came from Vrbo. A lot of those travelers came from Vrbo.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Absolutely.
Build a CRM.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting now, too. I mean, back in the day when I was CMO at Condo World in North Myrtle Beach, we were 95% direct bookings. And, for those 13 years, I mean, Vrbo was very, very early in the beginning part of that, and Airbnb didn't come along till later. I would probably never recommend anybody be 95% direct these days. And, looking back on that point and where we are now, like what do you think is the right mix of direct versus OTA?
100% Verbo. Actually,
99% Verbo. Give him 1%.
I
Come
think
on.
I think it's whatever works for you. I think that there is a number that has historically been thrown out there that is something like 50-50.
Yeah.
If you can get to the point of 50% direct, 50% OTA, and then your OTA mix is delivering you the types of travelers that you want the most, that's probably pretty healthy. What would you say the number is?
I like 50-50. I like 60-40,
60-40
direct.
OTA, right?
Yeah, no. Depends, I guess. But it also depends on the initiatives and the goals of the company.
Yeah.
That when we were 95% direct, we were building Condo World into becoming an OTA. And so
Yeah.
spending a lot of money on paid ads and building a brand was our strategy. But
Yeah,
I think you've got to balance it.
You absolutely do. And I mean, there's another thing that Simon said in the M&A session upstairs is like, if you're ever trying to sell your business, they're going to want to understand what that mix is.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're 100% OTA, then there's a little bit, what did they say in Office Space? It's like, what do you say you do here? Like,
yeah. Exactly.
you're
less-
going
less
to need to
valuable.
demonstrate some sticky value for your business.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I find it comical that we had to come all the way to London to interview you. But I mean, if we can go somewhere cool and do this next year, I'm all for it.
I mean, there's plenty of conferences. I mean, this is a pretty good one.
No,
though,
this
right?
is a phenomenal one. This is an amazing show. I haven't been to it, so I'm very excited to be here. But thinking along the lines of, this is a global industry that we're in. There's
Yeah.
differences all over the place. Where do you see the industry in 5-10 years?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think 10 years ago when I started in this industry, when you were asking travelers where are you going to go to book your properties, they would say, well, wherever has the most homes. And what we saw was, I mean, during the pandemic, or shortly thereafter, there was all this supply that came on the market. A lot of property managers have a lot of supply. A lot of OTAs have a lot of supply. And when we've done studies with travelers, what we've found is the number one thing they want is to remove the anxieties that exist with booking a vacation rental. Like, is the host going to cancel on me? Will it look like the pictures? If there's a refundable damage deposit, will I get that back? So I think this industry, I think the winner will be the property managers and the OTAs. They can take that anxiety away. And that's what we're working on. That's why I fire millions of bad acting properties.
Yeah.
That's why we have Verbo Care, so that in the event that something goes wrong, people say that this brand has your back. And guess what? What we find is when people use Verbo Care, they literally got canceled on, and they come back to Verbo because we're reducing anxiety.
Yeah.
That is the future of this category.
Yeah.
And anybody that leads a conversation with, I have this many properties, you can, well, you don't have to say, but you can tell them that Tim said, that's a vanity metric. Tell me about your repeat customers. Tell me about what percentage of your bookings get 5-star reviews. Tell me about how are you building durable value rather than just aggregating supply.
Yeah, that's definitely a question that owners should ask.
Yeah. No, and that's something that we talk about a lot, especially
Yeah.
this year, of like the growth at all scale or growth at all cost mentality. You know what that's really led to, and I've for sure seen it in my consulting business that I've seen companies go from 0 to 100 or even larger than that in a very short amount of time. But as they start getting closer to that 100, they're losing these ones that they got initially, and it's like that's not sustainable.
Yeah, and which ones are you getting? Are you losing your good ones?
Right.
And
Right, 'cause you
filling
can't
in
take care
with
of them.
bad? Like,
Yeah.
I think property managers should be incredibly active in pruning inventory and talking to some of these owners that aren't willing to upgrade their homes or don't keep their calendars up to date, and you tell them this isn't working out.
Yeah, the breakup.
Yes.
The actual breakup, yeah. We have to do that quite a bit in this industry.
Yeah.
Thinking about those conversations with properties, breaking up with properties, what can your team do to help facilitate, give them information so the property managers can have those conversations with the owners?
I mean, I think review scores is probably the main one, right? Like, I often tell the story of I had this major partner, guy in Myrtle Beach, that he lost his premier partner status, and he came to me and was all upset about it. And I had our account manager do diligence on where he was getting his lower reviews, and it was this one spot, and he said to me, that's where I have a new cleaner.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
So let us help you with data. I do wonder if we could start a business where we just fire them for you. What do you think, Sartor? should we start a business where we're the Bobs from Office Space,
Right.
and we fire owners for you? I think it's an opportunity. James, where's James? I bet he'd be into that. Yeah.
Love it.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a sadistic kind of person, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we just say this isn't working out, and we do it in a data-driven way.
Fair?
That's the way to do it,
Yeah.
for sure.
See, we're trying to find ways that OTAs can add value to your business.
Yeah.
Always thinking,
Hitmen.
Tim. Always thinking.
Love it. What's one thing in closing that you've seen that U.S. operators have done really well as far as hospitality that the U.K. operators maybe could lean
adopt.
into a little more?
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say is, I think the U.S. operators have gotten really good at understanding corridors. And maybe you've seen that in some of your business too, like really understanding that like in the Panhandle, a lot of the travelers are from Atlanta, and here's how I do amazing direct marketing to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of that exists in Europe too, but like some of the US operators, I think we've gotten really good at that data-driven stuff. I think that some of the hospitality that's provided here in the UK or in Europe is there's a lot that American operators could learn too, especially understanding the differences of various different travelers. I mean, I always say, what do you call somebody that only speaks one language? An American. So I think understanding the different languages, the different cultures, and the ways that people want to be approached is something that that the American property managers could learn a lot from what we see here in Europe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, Tim, thank you for letting us do this. We always enjoy talking with you. And if anybody wants to learn more about the vacation rentals of the year, where do they go check this out?
We have a landing page on Vrbo, and on my LinkedIn, we've also posted a link to it. So we'd love to have you hear more about it.
And we also, the episode today on our podcast is about vacation rental of the year. So we had to strict silence. But you can go to alexnannypodcast.com to listen. Thank you, everybody.
Next time, a different continent.
Yes.
All right.
Deal.
See ya.